Welcome to a new episode of the Opening Bid Unfiltered podcast. I'm Yahoo Finance Executive Editor Brian Sozzi. Like I always say, this is the podcast that will make you a smarter investor, period. And I'm really excited about our featured guest for this episode, Nirav Tolia, co-founder and CEO of Nextdoor. Nirav, good to see you. You have a lot going on at Nextdoor, but I think it's important before we get to some of those things to understand your story. I mean, you came back, in May 2024, and I saw this LinkedIn post from you. You said, quote, "When I left in 2018, I wasn't effectively living or modeling the values of a healthy organization." Talk to us a little bit about that and what drove you back to Nextdoor.
We're getting right to the depth from the very beginning.
We're coming out blasting here, bud.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Well, it's a pleasure to be on with you. So thank you for having me. And there is a lot going on. We've just launched the new Nextdoor. And it's really been a privilege for me over the last year and a half or so to come back to the company that I started in the summer of 2010. And after running that company for almost 9 years, I was really tired and burned out. And so when I think back to the end of 2018, when we made the decision to bring on a new CEO, which is a really tough thing when you're the existing CEO, particularly if you founded the company. And regardless of what happens, you have to deal with that transition. And I was able over the last 5 years to reflect on, why did we have to make the transition? What are the things that I can learn from that? And how do I want to be in the future, right? And it was not really thinking about coming back to Nextdoor. It was more about trying to understand how I could be my best self regardless of what I did in the future. And what I realized is after 9 years of the grind of running Nextdoor from its inception to the end of 2018, I was just a shadow of myself. And I think this happens to a lot of CEOs. You're in the grind. You're in the middle of a deep, dark tunnel. You don't know if you're ever going to get out. And it's difficult to have perspective. Now, I highly recommend being able to take 5 years off before coming back as CEO.
You weren't off, man.
I'm fresh again.
You didn't.
I'm totally fresh.
You were still on the board, right?
I was still on the board, so I never left. I just left as a day-to-day operator. And what I realized is it's very important, even when you're in it, to have that perspective. And that's an important lesson to learn. I think it's hard to learn that lesson in the middle of the thing, but if you can get back, take a little bit of distance, and then come back again, it's something you never forget.
I had the great pleasure of welcoming Yahoo co-founder Jerry Yang on this podcast about 6 months ago. And it was just a fascinating conversation. I asked him, what was it like in those early days? Because I think those early days help better understand what the company is today. So go back to those early days of Nextdoor. What were you trying to solve, as a co-founder, and what was that grind like?
Yeah, and I'll get to that. Now, interestingly, not sure if you know this, I was employee 84 at Yahoo. So when you brought Jerry back, I was there in 1996 for 3 years, which were the early days of Yahoo. And so I can tell you a little something about what Yahoo was like in the early days too. But ultimately that experience at Yahoo inspired me to try to do what Jerry did, which is start my own company. And those early days at Nextdoor were all about the mission, vision, and then building something real from those ephemeral things. The mission and vision, they're ideas, they're strategies, they're ambitions, they're dreams. And then you have to turn that into reality. What we do in technology is we turn that into a product. And then consumers use the product. You think about how to scale the product. You think about ultimately how to monetize the product. And then you build a successful business. But in the early days, all you have is an idea. That idea for us was very powerful. It was this notion that the community in which we live is one of the most important communities of them all, but it's not being served by technology today. There was a social network for our business lives. That was LinkedIn. There was a social network for our friends. That was Facebook. There was a social network for people who we find interesting. That was Twitter, now called X. But no social network for where we live. No social network for local. So that was the initial premise. Turning that into a product that now has over 100 million verified neighbors in 11 countries around the world, that's why I call it a grind, because starting something from nothing is not easy. Now, coming back to the company and taking something that already has a lot of momentum, but potentially the momentum is not exactly in the right direction, that's a different challenge, but one that I've really enjoyed.
Before we dive down the rabbit hole of everything you're working on at Nextdoor, you piqued my interest. I'm a bit of a corporate history geek or a buff. What was it like being employee number 84 at Yahoo? What were those early days like?
It was like winning a lottery ticket. I mean, if you think back to 1996, the early days of the internet, Yahoo was the place where everyone wanted to work. Yahoo was the product that everyone loved. And I remember so many days coming into the office and every metric we were looking at had doubled. And I realized after a couple of years, if I were run over on the way to work because I wasn't looking both ways before crossing the street, I don't know that anyone at Yahoo would have even noticed because I was just lucky to be there. All the boats were rising with that rising tide, and I was one of the people who was so privileged to be in the right place at the right time. And so ultimately why I left, and I remember at my going away party, Jerry coming to me and saying, you know, no one's leaving Yahoo right now. This was the middle of 1999. Why are you leaving? And I said, Jerry, look at what you've built. Look at what you've done. Look at this incredible company. And I know that I haven't had anything to do with this. I wonder, could I do something like this? And he was completely quiet. And he looked at me with that quizzical, great Jerry Yang look. And he finally said, you know, you're a lot less smart than I thought you were. And I was quiet. And he said, you think all this is easy? You have no idea how hard it is to build a company from scratch. And no truer words were ever spoken, but Nextdoor is the third one that I've done. So I guess I couldn't get the bug out of my system.
What? No, that's a good story. I love that stuff. And we're still an amazing property. I mean, I'm obviously biased, but this place is great. So talk to us, so I followed the Nextdoor since the SPAC IPO, I believe it was 2021. I've followed the company story really up until now and getting to know you a little bit here as well. When did you identify that you needed to come back? Like, what was that moment that you said, you know what, I could do a hell of a lot better?
It's hard to pinpoint that as a moment because I don't think it really happens that way. I think what ends up occurring over some period of time is you realize the trajectory the company's on is not the optimal trajectory. And you start thinking about, okay, why is that? Do we have the wrong strategy? Do we need to execute better? Is there a competitor that's doing it better than us? And ultimately, you may end up on, maybe you need a fresh set of faces, a fresh perspective, new leadership to take things to the next level. And that happened to me in 2018. That's actually why I ultimately left. And we brought in Sarah Fryer, this incredible executive, and she ran the company. She took it public through the SPAC and things were going well. But post-COVID, the product stopped delivering the same way. It didn't evolve the way it needed to. It didn't adapt the way the world was adapting. And we're in the most competitive industry in the world. We have to build great product and keep building great product over and over and over again. And so as a board, we realized, and Sarah was part of this, that we needed to get back to our roots on the product side. And that was going to require a leader that had deep product chops. And I like to joke, it must have been going pretty badly for them to call the old founder to come back, right? But in reality, again, there's so much advantage to calling a founder in because I was part of creating the product. And so if we identified the product as the point of leverage that we needed to improve, it was natural for us to start thinking about, can we bring back the people who know the product the best? And so that started with me playing a more engaged role with the head of product at Nextdoor, with Sarah, with a couple of other board members. We had these kind of product meetings. And ultimately what we realized is we needed to do the wholesale change and we needed to focus on the product and we needed to rebuild the product from scratch. So it wasn't just that we needed to make a little change here and a little change there. We needed to rebuild the product from scratch. That's what we launched last week as the new Nextdoor. And we're very excited about seeing where that can take the company.
All right, hang with us, Nirav. We're going to go off for a quick break. We'll be right back on Opening Bid Unfiltered. Welcome back to Opening Bid Unfiltered here at the NASDAQ in Times Square. Having a fun chat here with Nirav Tolia, co-founder and CEO of Nextdoor. And I should know what, employee number, what was it, 84, 87?
84 at Yahoo.
84.
So I love your company too.
At Yahoo. I totally dig it. So you have been back leading Nextdoor since May 2024. Now you're having what you call a refounding moment. What is different about Nextdoor as you go through this refounding moment?
Well, last week we relaunched the product. We call it the new Nextdoor. And it's not just a relaunch. It is literally a transformation of the existing product. We have 3 brand new things that we're doing with Nextdoor: integrating local news and alerts specific user interface for when there are alerts. And finally, bringing in AI technology to ensure that the favorited things that neighbors have recommended are easy to find inside Nextdoor. And any one of these 3 things would be a fundamental transformation for the Nextdoor product. But to do all 3 of them, we've been working on this for over a year, and we're really excited. We think the product is dramatically different and dramatically better.
How are you making it more local?
We're making it more local because we're bringing in more information sources. So historically, Nextdoor has been 100% user-generated content. For the first time with the new Nextdoor, we're bringing in local publishers. We have 3,500 local publishers, local news publishers that are publishing 50,000 articles every single week. There are only about 8,000 local news publishers in the country, so we almost have half of them already. And so now on Nextdoor, it's not just neighbors posting things that are going on in the neighborhood. It's the local publishers whose jobs it is to educate the local constituents about what's going on, also publishing content. So I would say at a high level, social networks are about having great content. Instagram is about having great visual content. X is about having great content in short form. LinkedIn is about having great business content. Nextdoor needs to be about having great local content. And one of the things we realized when we were refounding the company is that premise that all the best local content can be captured by user-generated content, that's actually not enough user-generated content. You can augment that UGC with local publishers. And ultimately, I see a world where on Nextdoor, no matter where the local content exists, local publishers, neighbors, schools, churches, other community organizations, small businesses, I see them all using our really large distribution platform to bring all of that content together.
So under your watch, since you've been back, Nirav, the weekly average users on Nextdoor, it's gone up steadily. And that's a good thing, of course, when you're going up against the likes of Facebook and Instagram. Everybody's competing for everybody's eyeballs. But when does the monetization component hit another gear? What have you heard from advertisers as you have this refounding moment?
Well, both our neighbors and our advertisers want the same thing. They want a Nextdoor product that people are relying on every single day. Because those great social networks that you mentioned, they are daily use cases. We wake up in the morning, we check Instagram. We're about to go to bed at night, we read X. Nextdoor needs to be the same way. There is no other place where you can find in one application everything that's going on around you. And actually local word of mouth in particular, it's one of the last things to be digitized. You can't go to Google and type the query, what's going on around me. You can't go to ChatGPT and find out what's happening in your neighborhood. It's only Nextdoor. And so we need to create a product that has good enough quantity and quality of content that you feel like every single day there's a reason for you to use that product. If that happens, advertisers will more than ever want to be on the platform. We will have more inventory than we have today. And that revenue will start to grow non-linearly, not incrementally. Yes, we've been growing it incrementally. Our user base has been growing incrementally as well. But at 100 million verified neighbors, we think we can do way better. We think we should be much bigger because everyone chooses the neighborhood in which they live. And we should be using technology to make their experiences in those neighborhoods better.
I see what the Reddit team has done in inking deals with the likes of OpenAI and the tech platforms. I imagine you're sitting on a ton of data. What are your views on licensing out that data to big tech?
It's a great question because one of the pillars of the new Nextdoor is a section of the app that's powered by AI where we're taking our content and we are building a kind of chat GPT for local information. But that content that we have, the 14 years of neighbor conversations, that's proprietary to Nextdoor. We've never shared it. We've never allowed it to be indexed by Google or crawled by ChatGPT in the same way that Reddit has. And so I think for us, it doesn't make nearly as much sense to license the data out. It makes more sense for us to have it on Nextdoor because that's why people use Nextdoor. My concern in licensing, not just for Nextdoor or for Reddit, but any company that chooses to license or give their content away, my concern is at that point, the consumer won't come to that destination. Because if they can get Nextdoor content on Google, why would they come to Nextdoor? If they can get Nextdoor content on ChatGPT, why would they come to Nextdoor? They come to Nextdoor because it is the only place to hear directly from your neighbors who you know are your actual neighbors. And that's something that we can't give away because it's such an important and strategic part of the company's value.
Yeah, it sounds like you're diversifying the platform and refounding it. You know, we've seen this comes at an interesting time where we see Elon Musk about to bring payments onto the platform. And at Cannes, I must have just missed you at Cannes Lions. I sat down with now former ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino, and she was talking about the upcoming launch of X Money and the social interaction and payments. Are payments on your product outlook for the next few years?
I think for the next few years, for sure, because if you think about it, so much local commerce happens after you ask your neighbors for a recommendation. I need a dentist. I need a plumber. I want to know where to buy dinner tonight for my family. I want to know what fun things to do with my 6-year-old this weekend. All of those things ultimately, particularly through an AI interface like the one that we built in our favorite section, all of those things ultimately ladder up to purchases, whether it's a purchase of a thing, a service, or some way to spend your time. And so I believe that there will be a future when you won't actually go to multiple sites to do a variety of things, ending with the transaction. I think you'll go to one site, you'll ask something in natural language, that agentic interface that you hear about now when people talk about AI, and ultimately you will want to close the transaction or complete the transaction in the same place. Because folks start at Nextdoor, we are uniquely qualified to also have them end on Nextdoor. And so I fully expect, particularly around small businesses, that there will be opportunities to take the transaction all the way from query to completion, all on our platform. But that's not in the short term.
You're doing some really deep product work here, Nirav. Would it be better to just to do this stuff as a private company?
You know, it's a good question because I had been a private company CEO for the last 20 years. And this is the first time as a public company CEO. And it's a little different. Now, I will say that even as a private company CEO, I care deeply about hitting all the numbers, about reporting progress, about having forecasts, about having accountability, and then delivering on that accountability. The challenge in being public is when you're taking on a transformation. Because transforming a product or refounding the company the way that you've articulated, that is not a quarter by quarter kind of effort. That's something that's got a longer time horizon. But I think the best public company CEOs, they're able to balance innovation and execution. They're able to both develop the future and deliver short-term results. And so we've tried to build that muscle into Nextdoor as well. In terms of being private, look, what I'll say is the same thing that one of my great investors and board members at Nextdoor always tells me. That's Bill Gurley from Benchmark. He says, do you want to play in the big leagues? Of course. We all want to play in the big leagues. Well, if you want to play in the big leagues in our industry, that means you're public. That means that you're out there and people are looking at you and they can examine you and they can buy your stock or sell your stock. And ultimately, the scoreboard is up there every single day. It's not easy. It sometimes can get in the way because you have to be long-term minded, but be aware of the short term as well. But if you want to be great, that's how you have to compete.
Bill Gurley, of course, OG in tech investing. Nirav, at the end of every podcast, we love to get a hot take from our guests. Nothing planned here, just off the cuff. As someone that has seen a few cycles in tech, what are your thoughts on these giant pay packages being given out to AI talent? And what is the trickle-down effect to a company like yours that is not as big as a Meta and Mark Zuckerberg's wallet?
It's a great question because I do believe that AI and the emergence of AI is a real platform shift for our industry. In much the same way that the internet then led the way for the web, which then led the way for mobile, which then led the way for cloud. And now all of that has led the way for AI. And I think it's going to be a huge deal. I also believe that ultimately these technology products are created by people. People are the real asset. It's not the code. It's not the product itself. It's the brains behind this. And so if someone is an expert at this AI stuff that is so important, I understand why Zuck is doing what he's doing. Now, we at Nextdoor are not in a position to pay those kinds of salaries. So we need to figure out a different way to do it. And for us, that means teaching ourselves to be great at AI. We don't have the benefit of having all that cash and picking up something off the shelf or someone off the shelf who has that expertise. We have to build it internally. Ultimately, I think that's a lot more durable, and we really have no choice. Now, I think the interesting hot take, though, is that all of these platform shifts, typically the advantage goes to startups because they know how to innovate and they are required to innovate. It's not a luxury for a startup to innovate. It's a necessity. Whereas the big companies, it's a luxury to innovate. AI may be one of the first big platform shifts where there is true advantage flowing to the incumbents versus the startups. But I don't think about that. I think about what can we do at Nextdoor to use the power of AI to build a better product, to better serve our neighbors, to better serve our advertisers, to ultimately create a more attractive proposition for investors. And that's what we're 100% focused on.
All right, well, we're wishing you much success in the refounding of Nextdoor. Nirav Tolia, co-founder and CEO of Nextdoor. Looking forward to following your journey from here on.
Thanks so much for having me, and go use the product. It's much better. It's the only thing that will help you understand what's going on around you, and it truly will make you love your neighborhood even more than you do today.
Well said, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Brian.
All right, that's it for the latest episode of Opening Bid Unfiltered here at the NASDAQ in Times Square. Like I always say, continue to hit us with those 5-star ratings on the podcast platforms, YouTube, you name it. I love all of your feedback. It makes me a better interviewer. It makes us a better platform so we can help you every single day. We'll talk to you soon. Are you ready to master the markets and, dare I say, become a better investor in the process? Yahoo Finance has you covered with our new full suite of original podcast content. Whether you're a seasoned investor picking up new trends or you're just starting your financial journey, we offer invaluable market insights and strategies from some of the most influential minds on Wall Street and the boardroom. We're also teaming with some of the biggest rising stars in the financial community for key insights to help boost your portfolio, build your wealth, and make you a successful investor. Welcome to the Opening Bid Unfiltered podcast.
Welcome to Stocks in Translation. Welcome to Financial Freestyle.
Welcome to Decoding Retirement.
Welcome to Living Not So Fabulously.
Welcome to Trader Talk.
Welcome to The Big Idea.
Welcome to Yahoo Finance Sports Report.